A man kept a nicotine pouch tucked under his upper lip through every warehouse shift all day for 8 months. And the morning he finally felt the gum above his front teeth with his tongue, it had quietly pulled back and turned to leather. Subscribe to follow real medical case studies like this one, where a small daily habit ends somewhere no one saw coming. No smoke, no smell, no ash. One pouch out, another one in, all day, every shift for 8 months. It felt harmless. That was the whole problem. He's a 41-year-old male, we'll call DM, shoulder length, light brown hair, warm hazel eyes, a friendly, approachable face with soft laugh lines around the eyes. Average build, a plain neutral top, the kind of man you'd pass in a hardware aisle and never think twice about. That morning he was brushing his teeth, nothing special. Then his tongue caught on something above his left front teeth, a wrong texture. He looked up into the bathroom mirror, pulled his lip back, and the tooth looked longer than it should. Too long. The gum around it had retreated, and where it used to sit, the tissue was pale, not pink, pale, thick, and strangely dry, like the skin over an old callus. He pressed it, a patch peeled slightly, raw underneath. And here's the part that kept him from acting sooner. It did not hurt. Not even a twinge. If you use pouches or vape, do one thing tonight. Look under your lip in the mirror, because what you cannot feel, the tissue is already recording, quietly, long before your nerves send a single warning. That's the trap with the mouth. Painless does not mean harmless. His gum had been changing for months, and pain was never going to be the messenger. So he told himself it was nothing. He kept the pouch right where it always went, same spot, every shift. Eventually, he sat in a dentist chair. And in the language of that clinic, a 41-year-old male, we'll call DM, presented with gum recession, a whitish, thickened lesion, and mild bleeding, all sitting directly above the left front teeth. Those words hide their meaning. Recession comes from the Latin word for stepping back. Re, back. Cedere, to go back. The gum was literally retreating from the tooth, step by step, exposing the root it was built to protect. The dentist didn't need long. She saw the pattern in seconds. The damage sat exactly where the pouch always rested. Not scattered around the mouth, not on both sides, one spot. A perfect little map of a daily habit printed straight into his gum. Where the pouch went, the tissue died back. It was almost too neat, but the recession was not the thing that made her pause. She had seen receding gums 1,000 times. It was the pale, hardened patch that changed her face. She leaned in closer, touched it with an instrument. It didn't scrape away. It didn't bleed the way normal inflamed tissue does. It just sat there, tough and gray-white, like the gum had grown its own armor. And that worried her. She didn't reach for a treatment. She reached for a camera. She took a photo of the lesion, then a swab. Then she wrote a referral, and she wrote it fast, the kind of fast that tells a patient, without saying it, that this is being taken seriously. DM asked her what it was, and this is the moment the room went quiet, because she would not name it yet. That pale, hardened patch could mean several very different things, and one of them was the word no one in that room wanted to say out loud. Before anything could be treated, before anyone could relax, the doctors had to rule them out, one by one. So they started with the time scale, the first question that quietly narrows everything. Seconds point to blood vessels. Days to weeks point to infection. But months of the same contact in the same spot point to something mechanical and chemical, grinding away at one place. That single rule already told the doctors where not to look. Still, they had to be sure. So they began with the easiest, kindest answer first. The first guess was a fungal infection. A simple antifungal cream, a couple of weeks, and the whole thing might just melt away. That was the hopeful version. The version where DM walks out with a prescription and forgets any of this happened. And for a moment, it looked possible. The candidate was Candida. You might know it by its common name, thrush. Candida, from the Latin for white, because that is exactly what an overgrowth looks like on the tongue, a pale film. Thrush loves a warm, moist mouth. And DM's upper lip, packed with a pouch, shift after shift, was warm and moist all day long. But here is the tell. Thrush wipes away. Run a gauze over it and the white lifts off, leaving raw pink underneath, and then it creeps back over a few days. Fast to come, fast to go. The dentist pressed her instrument against the pale patch on DM's gum and dragged. Nothing moved. It would not scrape off. This had not built over days, it had built over months. So the easy story quietly collapsed and the stakes went up. That is when the pattern in his mouth became the loudest clue in the room, because the damage was not spread around. It sat in one exact place, the gum above his left front teeth, and that matched his habit perfectly. One pouch out, another one in, always tucked into the same left upper spot, all day, every shift, for 8 months. A map of a habit printed straight into the tissue. So the next candidate had to explain that. Lichen planus, an immune reaction where the body's own defenses turn on the lining of the mouth. It can leave white, thickened patches too, so it belonged on the list. But lichen planus has a signature. A fine lace-like web of white lines threaded across the tissue, usually on both sides of the mouth. DM had no lace, and his lesion sat only where the pouch touched. An immune attack does not politely stay inside the outline of a pouch. So lichen planus was set aside too. Now only the frightening candidate was left. Early oral cancer, a white, hardened patch that will not scrape off, sitting in tissue bathed in a chemical for months, is exactly the kind of thing that has to be taken seriously. Not because it usually is cancer, but because if it is, every week matters. This is the moment the room went quiet. If you've ever brushed off a spot in your mouth because it did not hurt, stay with this, because DM's lesion never hurt him either. That is precisely why he ignored it for 8 months. There's only one way to answer the cancer question for certain. A biopsy, bio meaning life, opsy meaning to see, to look directly at living cells. So the dentist numbed the gum, took a small punch of the tissue, and sealed it in a specimen container to send to the lab. And while they waited, the timescale heuristic quietly pointed the way home. Not seconds, so not a burst vessel. Not days, so not a passing infection. Months. The same contact, the same spot, over and over. That signature does not belong to a bug or a rogue immune cell. It belongs to something mechanical and chemical, pressed against one patch of living tissue hour after hour until it gave way. So the biopsy went to the lab, and everything now hung on what those cells would say. The answer would not only name the lesion, it would trace a line back 200 years to a Swedish farmer's lip in 1809, and to the one hidden ingredient in a modern pouch that acts like a blade against living tissue. The cells came back, and the first word on the report was the one that mattered most, not cancer. That fear, the one the dentist could not shake, the reason for the swab and the referral and the biopsy, was gone. Take a breath. He was not looking at a tumor. What he was looking at had a longer name. Nicotine-induced localized gingival keratosis with recession and early tissue necrosis. Break it apart. Keratosis comes from keratin, the tough protein that builds your fingernails, and the hard callus on a worker's palm. His gum had been trying to armor itself, laying down that same tough layer where nothing soft was meant to be. And necrosis, from the Greek for death, means exactly that. Cells that had stopped living. A small patch of gum quietly dying in the one spot the pouch always sat. So how does a little white pouch do that? For the answer, go back to 1809. Swedish farmers, out in the cold, started tucking moist tobacco under the upper lip. They called it snus. No smoke, no fire, just a pinch of leaf resting against the gum hour after hour. That habit never really died, it just changed clothes. Modern labs took the idea and cleaned it up. They stripped the tobacco leaf out entirely. What stayed was the nicotine. And then they added something the old farmers never had. High alkaline salts. Why? Because alkaline chemistry pushes nicotine through the gum and into the blood faster for a stronger, quicker hit. That is the selling point. It's also the hidden blade. Here is the part nobody feels. That alkalinity raises the pH right against the gum. Hour after hour, shift after shift. Your gum cells are not built for that. They are built to sit in the calm, neutral bath of your saliva, not to be pressed against a chemical that keeps tilting them the wrong way. It's a slow chemical burn with no heat and no pain, and nicotine adds a second cut. It squeezes the tiny blood vessels that feed that tissue, tightening them down until the oxygen supply to the gum drops. Think of a garden hose someone is quietly stepping on. Less blood, less oxygen, less repair. So the gum takes the daily damage but never gets the fuel to fix it. Starved and burned at the same time, the surface cells thicken into that pale, leathery callus. The blood supply underneath withers. And with nothing left to hold it up, the gum simply steps back, retreating off the tooth, exposing the root. That is your title answered. That is exactly what happened to his gums. Remember the time scale. Seconds point to blood vessels, days to weeks point to infection, but months of the same contact in the same place point to something mechanical and chemical, grinding at one spot. His mouth had been telling that story the whole time. A perfect map of a habit, printed exactly where the pouch always rested. Back in the hospital, DM's treatment was almost insulting in how simple it was. Stop placing pouches there. That was it. No surgery for the lesion, no medication. Just move it, or better, stop. Within 3 weeks, the white patch softened and shrank. The dying tissue stepped back from the edge. But here is the quiet, hard part. The lesion healed. The recession did not. The gum that had already stepped back was gone for good. That exposed root stayed exposed, sensitive to cold forever, sharp little jolts every time he drank something icy. To cover it, he would need a gum graft, a surgeon borrowing tissue from elsewhere in his mouth, to patch what the pouch dissolved. He recovered from the dangerous part. He kept the permanent part. So let this be the lesson, and it is a small, quiet one. Rotate nothing. Notice everything. Look under your lip in the mirror right now, and if you use pouches, you already know which side to check. Painless does not mean harmless. That patch never hurt, which is the whole reason he ignored it for 8 months. The tissue in your mouth keeps a record of every small habit written down long before you ever feel a thing. Read it early, while the words can still be erased. And that is the story of how a man's all-day nicotine pouch quietly dissolved the gum it touched. This has been a medical case study.